You said it's going to be on in a minute. Is it on?
Ask the man in charge.
Good? Okay. Okay, good morning. Today's daf Samach Aleph. Sometimes we have a daf like yesterday with a lot of agadita, and then some days we have a daf like today, which is, it's at a certain level very technical, in as much as if the different Rishonim learn the sugya very, very differently, down to questions like what's the function of our Mishnah. We'll see there's a Brisa, there's a Rebchia, so I'm going to try today, also because it's a relatively short daf, to stick with Rashi, and we'll try to go through Rashi inside. So the Mishnah was discussing the fact, we discussed simanim in animals, so we spoke about simanim behema, we spoke about simanim of the grasshoppers, chagavim, etc. But as related to birds, the Mishnah said the following: Simane of nemru, that the Torah didn't expressly state the simanim in an oath. So like an animal, for example, we say if it has split hooves, then it chews its cud. We say a fish, if it has fins and scales. We didn't get any such criteria by ophos, by birds. But the Chachamim gave certain statements, and we'll see it's either 4 or 3 plus 1. Kol of hadores tameh, that any bird that's a dores is tameh, and dores is something that is debated in the Rishonim, but at some level it has to do with how the bird eats or kills its prey. It kills its prey with its claws, or it holds the food with its claws, or it is eating the animal. It's eating the prey while it's still in its claws. So different explanations, but in any event, the idea that if an oaf is dores, does any of these things, so then it's tameh, it's not a kosher animal. And kol sheyesh lo, but kol sheyesh lo etzbe yisera, but if it has an extra finger, which again is subject to a lot of debate as to what that is. Does it mean that it has the extra kind of finger that comes out in the back? The Rishonim also disagree. Is it high? Does it have to be higher to be that etzbe yisera? Does it mean that you actually have some kind of extra finger above in the front? Does it mean that the middle claw is longer? All of these are different views in the Rishonim, but some element of etzbe yisera. V'zefek, if it has a crop is an area in the bird where food goes, partially digested, and then it'll subsequently make its way into the korkovan. The korkovan is the gizzard, which is where it really grinds up the food that the bird eats. So we're saying if it has this extra finger, if it has a crop, and if it's korkovan, if it's gizzard, niklaf is that the membrane on it can be peeled off. That's inside the korkovan. These are signs that it's tahar. So some understand that this is one symbol of Tumah, which is of its dores, and 3 of kashrus. Others understand that the 3 are defining the 1. And there's a lot of opinions about how to understand exactly what's going on here. But that's where we're going to pick up today in the Gemara. So at the bottom of Samach Beis, Simane Oflo Nemru, that didn't say Simanim, but rather the Chachamim gave us Simanim. Now I should just also give a little bit of intro to a couple other things that we'll encounter here. There, at least according to Rashi, there's 24. So basically what the Torah does is, while it doesn't give criteria, it gives 24 different birds that are tameh, that are not permissible to be eaten. The Torah lists, again, we're doing everything according to Rashi, the Torah lists 20 birds that are tameh, that can't be eaten, and 4 times it uses some variation on the phrase limino, limineo, and we're going to learn that each of those adds another bird that's tameh. So there's 24 tameh birds. Just, again, we'll encounter it shortly, but we'll just say it by way of introduction. Of those 24, 20 of them actually have 3 simane tara, have 3 of these 4 things. So for our purposes today, we're going to consider the Mishnah as just listing 4 separate things. So 3 of those 4 Simane Tara are possessed by 20 of these 24 birds. So 20 of them get close, but they're still, even though they have 3 Simane Tara, they're not considered Tahar. There's one, the Orev, which has 2 Simane Tara. And then there's 2 birds, the Peres and the Aznia, which have only 1 of the Simane Tara. So those are the 24. And we're going to see the quintessential Of Tahar is the Tar. We could see tomorrow maybe what the Tar is exactly, but you have the Tar is the quintessential Of Tahar, as we know, and the way we know this is because the Tar is used for karbana, so it has to be a Tar or a Ben Yonah. So that's considered, the Tar is what we look at as the quintessential Of Tahar. So with that, let's get into it. So the Gemara says, V'lo, is it not true? Is it true that the Torah does not define simanim for what makes a bird tahar? V'hatanya, but we learned in a brisa, which is learning from Psukim, that one of the birds that's considered an of tameh is. I'm sorry. When I was listing the list before, I said 22 and 1. That's only 23. The 24th is the nesher. The nesher has no simane tahara. So the Gemara says, "V'atanya," we learned in a brisa, nesher. If you have this nesher, and again, a lot of debate as to what a nesher is, but man nesher miyuchad she'ein lo etzba yisera v'zefek v'ein kurkavanu niklaf v'dores v'ochel tameh. So he says, just like a nesher who's absent any of these 4 simanim, so it's unique in the fact that it has no etzba yisera. It doesn't have this extra finger or claw. It doesn't have a crop. It doesn't have a korkavan, a gizzard that can be peeled, and it is dores v'ochel, that it has, so it does the thing it's not supposed to do. It's missing the 3 things it should have to be tar. So just as a nesher has these unique elements, these 4 elements that make it tameh, af kol kiyotze bo tameh. So too, anything that's like it is going to be tameh. So the way we're going to understand this is as follows, that what the brisa is saying is, if it is missing these 4, or if it is dores and it's missing the 3 attributes that show it to be tahar, that's going to be tameh. But anything that's not like that, meaning if something would have even 1 of the simane tara, then that would be an of tahar. Okay, and so we'll get into a little bit of detail in a minute when we see Rashi. Continues the brisa, Torin. A tar, on the other hand, sheyesh lahan etzba yisera, that it has this extra finger or claw, v'zefek, it has a crop, v'korkav niklaf, it has a gizzard that can be peeled, ve'ein darsin v'ochlin, they don't do this drisa. Those cases are tahorin. So so a tar is tahar. Af kol kiyotze behen torin. So too, any that's like it is going to be tahar. Now, Rashi points out, we'll see Rashi inside, but this seems to be a stira, because the beginning of the brisa says that anything that, something is tameh if it's missing all 4. But if it has 1, then it would be tahar. And the second half of the brisa, which is talking about a Torah, seems to say if it has these 4 simane tahara, it's tahar, but if it would be missing one of the 4, it would be tameh. And Rashi is going to explain that the primary diuk that we should be making is the reisha, is the first one, which is the idea that if it has if it is missing the 4 simane tara, then it is tameh. But if it has any one of them, it would be tahar. So just we'll take a look quickly at Rashi. Rashi says nesher. So this nesher huzkar b'tmein that's referenced as one of the 24 tameh birds, the ones that we can't eat. V'danin binyan av heimenu. And we're going to learn a binyan av. So binyan av is we learn out from a pasuk that you see something by one, you apply it to others. Deman nesher miyuchad de'en lo echad mikol hasimanim halalu, that if you have a nesher that's unique in the sense of all the 24, it's the only one that's missing all 4 of the elements, v'tameh, and it's tameh. Af kol she'en lo echad mikol hasimanim halalu min nesher hu v'tameh. So it says Rashi, so too, anytime you're going to find another bird that does not have any one of the 4 elements, we're going to say, says Rashi, that it is a min of the nesher, not that it's just, and we're going to see Rashi's going to explain why he says that, so it's going to be, we're going to consider anything that's missing all four of these to be a type of nesher, and it's going to be tameh. Aval, ov sheyesh bo echad mikol elu, tahar. But if you would have a bird that has any one of these four elements, it's going to be tahar. V'kol sheken shnayim o shlosha o kulam. So he says, and so too, any bird, if a bird that has one of them is going to be tahar, then surely any bird that has two of the simanei tara, or three of the simanei tara, or all four of the simanei tara, okay? Chutz, now obviously we have a problem, because if we're just finished saying that we learn from a nesher that anything that's missing all four is tameh, but anything that would have even one is tahar, right? So wait a second, we have 23 other birds that have been designated tameh expressly in the Torah. So what does it mean that if it has any simanei tara, it's tahar? So we're going to learn as follows, that what it means is there are 24 categories of birds that are impermissible. We learn from nesher that if it's going to be anything other than these 24, then it needs to be missing all of the simanei tara in order to be tameh, otherwise it's going to be tahar. So he's saying, so therefore, as long as it has any simanei tara, it's good. Continues Rashi on the last of the upper wide lines, chutz me'ofos hamefurashim beparsha, except for those birds, the 23 other birds that are expressly listed, segzeres hakasavhu, it's exzeres hakasav she'afal pi sheish ben siman tara, that even though they have one or more simanei tara, kedamar lekaman, as we're going to see later on Amud Beis, then nonetheless tameim, that those 23 are unique, that even though they have some simanei tara, they're tamei. V'hai af lo marbi elamin nesher. So now Rashi gets into a point. He's saying, and Rashi essentially alluded to it earlier when he said, if you have something that is missing all four, we're going to consider it as long as it's a min nesher, because Rashi's of the opinion, other Rishonim disagree, some other Rishonim disagree, the ein of tamei ba'olam el chav dalad hamurim kan. Because Rashi understands that the 24 birds that are tamei are an absolute list. So therefore, if you're going to find an animal that's missing all simanei tara, like a nesher, you're going to have to say either Rashi's learning, and again, depends how different people understand Rashi. Either Rashi's learning that if you find a min nesher that is missing all four, it's tameh, but if you'd find some other bird, it's okay. Or some Rishonim understand that if you find a bird that's missing all four of the simanei tara, that is a nesher. And even if we don't recognize it as such, it's going to be a nesher. But in any event, Rashi's of the opinion that the 24 are an absolute list. So therefore, if you find one that's missing all simanei tara, it's going to be a nesher. Uchedetanya lekaman, like we learn later in Mir Hashem on Tuesday, that lefikach mana hakasa b'tmeim, that basically because there are so many Ophos that are tahar, the Torah instead listed those that are tameh, listed the 24. Uvahana chavdalid amrinon de isbuhu bekulo simanei tara chutz min hanesher. And we're gonna and the 24 that they have some element of kashrus, they have some simanei tara except for the nesher, but we're going to say that basically those 23 are special gzeres hakasov. So where we are is as follows: that if you have a bird that has the simanim of a nesher, which means it's missing all four simanei tara, then that is a tamei bird. And if it would have any siman of tara, it would be a tahar bird, with the exception of the 23 that are expressly listed that have, as we referenced before, either 1, 2, or 3 of the simanei tara, that those are also going to be tamei, even though they have a siman tara. Continues Rashi, Torim. So we have a Torah, Mana Akasav L'Tara, that the pasuk counts it for Tara, Umehen Atadan Binyanav L'Kulon. And from there you could see a Binyanav to what makes a Tahar bird. Now Rashi, as I referenced this before, that there was a little bit of a stira between the Reisha and the Seifa. He says, V'afagav the Kasha Seifa L'Reisha. So even though the Seifa, which seemed to say that only an animal with all four simanei tara is Tahar, is a conflict with the Reisha, which seemed to say that if any of the simanei tara are there, it's tahar. He says the Reisha machsher afilu b'chad, because the Reisha is saying that if you have even one siman of tara, it's kasher, other than the 23. B'chad siman, v'seifa lo machshar adeika kulo, and the seifa seems to say that it's only kosher if it has all four. So Rashi continues, Reisha davka v'seifa lekama mefarish. The Reisha is really the right diuk that we should be making, and the seifa we're going to explain later on why the Brisa mentioned Torim at all. But the idea is going to be that as long as you have, like the Reisha, only a nesher that has only something like a nesher that's missing all four, or one of the 23 are going to be tamei. So in any event, what do we see? So we see a brisa that's learning out from the Torah the simanim of a bird. So the Mishnah said that the simanim of the bird aren't listed by the Torah, and the Chachamim said things, but we see a brisa that's learning it out from the Torah. So Amar Baya answers, we're at the 6th line down, Lo nemar perushon midivrei Torah, el midivrei sofrim. So what we're going to say is, when the Mishnah says that the Torah didn't list them, it doesn't mean that the Simanei Tara don't come from the Torah. The Torah gives us the Simanei Tara by having a Nesher, by having a Torah. We'll see exactly which, but of course it comes from the Torah, but it's not expressly written in the Torah. So it says, Lo nemer perushan medivrei Torah. The Torah didn't explicate exactly its explanation of what it is, el medivrei sofrim, but basically the Rabbanon came along and figured it out based on what's written in the Torah. So the Brisa, which seems to say it comes from the Torah, is because the Rabbanon learned it out from the Torah, but we're not going to consider it, when the Mishnah says it's not written in the Torah, it's because it's learned out through the Divrei Sofrim, through the Rabbanon. Again, lots of views. Is it a halacha l'Moshe Sinai? Is it learned out expressly from the Psukim? Is it just the Rabbanon altogether? Different views on it. But for right now, what we're saying is, just in the basic pshat, it comes from the Torah, but the Rabbanon explicate it. Says Rashi, Perushan lo nisparshu hasimanim mamish b'Torah, that the Torah doesn't expressly explain what the simanim are. Ela midimana torin b'tahorin, that from the fact that it counts a tar as a tar animal, v'hani isnahu b'hu, and these four simanim are found in that tar. Umana nesher, and the Torah also lists a nesher b'tameim among those birds that are tamei. Uba'arba simanim halalo hein chalukim, and there's the difference between the nesher and the tar in these four simanim, because the nesher is missing all four and the tar has all four. Shema mina hein simanei tara. So that's what the Chazal learned, that because the Torah lists the tar and it lists a nesher, and there's a difference between them in these four elements, so that's going to be the simanei tara. Okay, so that is a brisa, and the answer is that yes, it comes from the Torah, but the Chachamim explained it. Comes a brisa that we're going to explain now. Tani Reb Chia learned as follows: Of haba b'simen echad tahar. So this, like the Reisha of the brisa we learned before, is saying that if you have a bird that comes in front of us with one siman, meaning it has one of these four elements of tahara, that's going to make it a tahar bird, a bird that you're able to eat. Why? Lefi she'ein doma l'nesher. Because it's not similar to a nesher. A nesher, we said, has none of the simanei tara, and that's the quintessential case of an of tamei. So therefore, anything that's not like that nesher, meaning it has even one of the simanei tara, is going to be tar. Because, continues Reb Chia, nesher the less le klal hu de lo seichel, that it's the case of the nesher that has none of the simanei tara that we say you can't eat it. Ha'ika de islechad teichel. But if there would be a case of a bird that has even one of the simanei tara, you would eat it. So this brisa of Reb Chia so far is like the Reisha of the brisa we learned earlier, which is saying the quintessential of tamei is a nesher, missing all four. If you have anything that has even one of the four, that's going to be an of tahar, obviously other than the 23 that are expressly listed otherwise. So now, says the Gemara, wait a second. You're learning out from, you're saying the Torah references a nesher. A nesher is missing all four simanei tara. So that's what makes a bird tamei. He says, why don't we instead learn it out from Torin? V'leilef mi Torin. Why don't we learn from Torin and say, ma Torin de'ika kulo arba afachinami ad de'ika kulo arba. So why not, instead of saying that the quintessential case is one of nesher, and therefore if it has even one siman of tara, it's tar. Why not say the other way? Learn from a tar. A tar has four simanei tara, and say that's a kosher bird. Anything other than anything that doesn't have all four simanim is going to be tamei, because only a tar is the quintessential. We're going to say the tar is the quintessential of tahar, and anything that's less than that is going to be an of tamei. So the Gemara is the Brisa is asking, why are we learning from Nesher as the primary limud? Why don't we learn from a tar as the primary limud, which would tell us that anything, whether it's anything that has less than 4 simanei tara is tamei. So says the Gemara, no, I'd rather we're going to learn from Nesher, not from tar. Why? Because im kain shar ofos tamei and the kasav rachmana lamali. Because if you're right that we should learn from tar and not from Nesher, why did the Torah need to list the other 23 birds that are tamei? So what's the Gemara saying here is as follows. If I learn that you require all 4 simanei tara for a bird to be tahar, then obviously any other bird that doesn't have the 4 simanei tara is going to be tamei, right? So therefore, why do I need to list the other 20? Why do I need to list any of them? I'll just list, I don't need any of the 24. I'll just list a tar, and we're going to say a tar is a kosher bird. A tar has these 4. Maybe you need the nesher just to contrast it, but you don't need all these other birds that they reference. There's no purpose to them because I know that they are tamei. On the other hand, if we understand that the prototypical of tamei is the nesher, so we're going to learn from the nesher that when is something prototypically tamei if it's missing all 4 simanei tara, right? So, and therefore, if you have even one siman of tahara, it would be tahar, except the Torah lists the other 23 because those are exceptions to the rule that even though they have 1, 2, or 3 simanei tara, they're still tamei. So then it makes sense why the Torah lists the other 23 because they are exceptions to the rule we would learn out from Nesher. But if we're learning out from tar, then those are already included. They're not an exception. They're just an example. And the Torah doesn't give examples of something that's already stated. So says Reb Chia that that's what's going on here, is that you would say, let's learn from the tar that you need all 4, but if so, there's no reason to list the 23. Whereas if we learn from Nesher, there is a reason to list the 23 because those are exceptions to the case of Nesher, from which we would say that if you have even one siman tara, it's tar, but yet those 23 are exceptions. So therefore, we're not going to learn out the prototypical case from a tar. Rather, we're going to learn the prototypical case from a Nesher. Says the Gemara, V'neilef minayu. So he's saying as follows. V'neilef minayu. I'm sorry. So let's just do Rashi very quickly before. So we're current with Rashi. We're up to Rashi. Of habalaf neinu b'siman echad. So he says that if you have a bird that comes in front of us with one siman shel tahara, that it has one of the simanei tara, tahar, it's tahar. V'kol shekenim ba b'shnayim o shlosha, and for sure if it comes with 2 simanei tara or 3 simanei tara, ubilvad sheyakir bo, as long as you recognize she'eno me'eser v'arbo aksuvim. So he's saying, so if you have a bird with even one siman tara, you know that it's kosher, as long as it's not one of the 24 or 23, because those are exceptions to the rule. You have to know what those 23 are. We're going to see tomorrow, Rashi says it expressly, and many of the poskim say this, is we don't know what a lot of these birds are. So at the end of the day, for us, it's hard to rely. So it's only someone who would know what these birds are who would actually be able to rely on it. But conceptually, you would say that as long as someone knows what the 24 are, then if he finds a different bird that has even one siman of tara, it's going to be tar. So the Gemara says, Im kain demutorin yalfinan. So the Gemara is saying, why can't I learn from tar instead of nesher? Because if it's true that we learn from a tar, shar ofas tamein lamali de kasvinu. What did he need to write them in the first place? Because there isn't one of the 23 that has all 4 simanei tara, which is what we would be learning out from a tar. The hachi amrin lekamam, because we say later on Amud Beis, the be'esr minayu ikka gimel simanim. This is what I said before. With 20 of them, they have 3 simanei tara. Ba'orev, with the orev, there's train. There's 2 simanei tara. Uveferes, peres uvazniya chad chad, and the peres and the azniya each have 1. So if we know that all 23 have some simanei tara, and we're learning out from tar that any bird to be tar requires all 4, so then obviously these 23 are tamei. Okay, so now the Gemara asks as follows. V'nelef, we're 5 lines up. V'nelef minayu, why don't we learn out from those three animals? We say, ma hasam tulasa v'lo achlinon, avkol tulasa v'lo nechol. So, v'kol shekain trei v'chad. So the Gemara wants to say as follows. Okay, so instead of learning out, you just finished saying we don't learn it out from a Torah, because otherwise, what's the point of the other 23? So the Gemara now asks a question, which actually we're going to see. We'll take a look at Tosfos. Seems to be the same question, but we'll see why it's different. But the Gemara is saying, well, okay, maybe instead of learning, maybe what we should learn out, since we can't learn out from Torah, let's learn out from the 20 birds that have 3 simane tara, but are still considered Ophos Tmeim, they're still considered birds we can't eat. So why don't we say, just like there you see 20 instances where they have 3 simane tara, and yet the halacha is you can't eat them. So therefore, any place that has 3, it still can't be eaten. So what's that another way of saying? It's another way of saying you need 4 simane tara in order to be tahar, because you see 20 instances, or 19 according to some, you see 20 instances where 3 is insufficient. So why not learn out from there, which would tell you that you need all 4. So we're not learning from Torah, we're going to learn from the 20 instances of 3. The kol shekain trei v'chad. So if 3 is not enough, then for sure 2 is not enough and 1 is not enough. Okay, so we should learn out from the cases of 3. So the Gemara says, no, we're not going to do that. Why? Because in Cain, if so, that we're learning from the 20 instances that have 3 and saying 3 is insufficient, you need 4, then Orev the Kasav Rahman Alamali. Why did the Torah need to give an example of an Orev which has only 2 Simane Tara, right? And say why did the Torah need to waste its breath and say that an Orev is Of Tameh? If we're learning from the cases of 3 that 3 is insufficient, then surely 2 is insufficient. So why did the Torah need to say it? So, hashta the islay tlasa lo achlinon the islay trei bai, that if you're telling me that I learned from the 20 that 3 is insufficient and you need 4, then surely 2 is insufficient. So if that was the proper limud, the Torah would have listed the 20, and it would not have listed the Orev at all. So from the fact that it lists the Orev, it shows that we're not learning it out from the case of the 3. So says Rashi. Rashi just has a girsa, and then the bottom he says, Im Kain, the second to bottom line, Dafilu b'telasa nafkula me'ofos hamufurashin delo miskasher. So he says that even if we're learning, that even with 3, that we're learning out from the 20 instances that have 3 simane tara that is not kosher, lamali lemichtav orev the less le'el trei. Why do I need a list the orev that doesn't have any more than 2? So far the Gemara has explained we don't learn from Torah because otherwise what do you need the other 23? And we don't learn from the 20 because otherwise what do you need from the, in other words, why do you need the orev? So what we're doing is we're eventually going to get back to explain why we have to be learning from the nesher. So Tosfos first of all says you could have asked that the Torah could have asked, why do I need 20? Tosfos says 19, but why do I need 20 instances of the same pasuk? If we know that if we're going to see it again on Amud Beis, but we've encountered this before. If the Torah lists something more than once, you're not learning out from it to other things. So he said you could have asked that if you have 20 things listed, then you can't learn out from that because it's showing you that those are so specific. But Tosfos says the Gemara had a better answer. But Tosfos says 4 lines up, Umiu kasha. You know what? I'm going to skip this Tosfos because it involves something that comes later. But the question Tosfos is dealing with is you were trying to learn from Tar that you need all 4, and then you said, well, if so, what do I need the other 23? And then you're trying to learn the same thing from the 3, saying that if 3 is insufficient, surely you need a 4th. So it's the same question. Tosfos answers based on something that we'll learn on Amud Beis, so I'm going to skip it for now. Okay, so where are we up to? We said we could learn from Nesher or from Tor, and the Torah says we don't want to learn from Tor because otherwise what do we need the other 23? We said learn from the 20 instances of 3 that 3 is insufficient and you need 4. Says the Gemara, no, because otherwise why did the Torah waste its time listing an Orev, which only has 2, I would have known that from Kal V'chomer. So from the fact that the Torah needed to teach you the 2, it must mean that it's not learning it out from the 3. So the Gemara says, okay, fine, you mentioned Orev. V'leilef me Orev. We're on Am Beis now. Learn it from the Orev. Ma hasam trei lo, that just like there, even though an Orev has 2 simanei tara, that it is not considered a kosher bird, af kol trei lo. So I should learn out, instead of learning out what we've learned out from the Nesher, that if it has even 1 siman tara, it's kosher, I should learn from the Orev that even if it has 2 simanei tara, it's going to be an of tamei, and you're not allowed to eat it, which would mean that only if it has 3 or 4 simanim, and is not one of the 20 that's listed as tamei, so this would be a very different limud. So we were learning that even one siman tara protects. If we're learning from Orev, we're going to say you need at least 3 simanei tara to protect, because you see from Orev that 2 is insufficient to make it tar, because you see from an Orev which has 2 simanei tara and it's still tamei. So the Gemara says, as you might have guessed, well, the Gemara says, well, no, that doesn't work, because im kain peres v'azniya the kasav rachman alamali. Because if the Torah was learning from Orev that you needed at least 3 simanei tara to be tahar, then what did the Torah need to say? A peres and an azniya. The peres and an azniya have only 1 siman tara. So continues the Gemara, hasha the islay trei lo achlinon the islay chad mi bai. So if having 2, i.e. the case of an Orev, is insufficient to make it kosher, then surely having 1, which is the case of the peres and azniya, would be insufficient. So why do the Torah need to say a peres and an azniya? So from the fact that the Torah does say a peres and an azniya, you see that the limud is not from the case of Orev. So says Rashi, Imkain demei azniya ba'inan lemelef. Okay, I'm sorry. That's coming up soon. Okay, so therefore we've determined that we don't learn it from Torah, because otherwise, what do you need the other 23? You don't learn it from the 20 because otherwise, what do you need the Orev? You don't learn it from the Orev because otherwise, what do you need the peres and the azniya? So now the Gemara asks, as you might expect, v'nigmar min peres v'azniya. Okay, fine. Let's learn from the case of the peres and azniya, which would tell us what? That if you have 1 siman tara, it's insufficient, because you see that a peres and an azniya have 1 siman tara, and yet they're not considered kosher. So therefore, anything that it needs at least 2 simanei tara to be kosher, and that would be a different limud than what we're learning from Nesher, which tells you even 1 siman tara is enough, because this would tell you 1 siman tara is not enough, you need at least 2. So the Gemara says, as again you might guess, imkei nesher de kasav rachman alamali. So he says, if you're right that we could learn from a peres and azniya that one siman is insufficient, you need 2 simanei tara. Hasha de islay chad lo achlinon, that if the peres and azniya, which have 1 siman tara, is still insufficient to permit it to be eaten, the less le klal mi bai. Is in any question that the nesher would be an of tamei, which doesn't have any simanei tara? So the Gemara is saying, so we can't learn it from peres and azniya either, because we're left so ela nesher the less le klal hu de lo sechol ha de islay chad achol. So the Gemara says, so therefore we're coming to our conclusion after all this, back where we started, that therefore the only thing we can learn out from is the nesher, because and it tells you that anything that, like a nesher, is missing all 4 simanei tara, that's tamei, and but something that would have even 1 siman of tara would be tahar, as long as it's not one of the 23. Now you might ask me, well, what do I need the other 23? So the 23 are needed, as we said before, because each of those is an exception to the rule that we learn from nesher. Because we learn from nesher that only something that has no simanei tara is tahar, right? And is tamei, and anything else will be tahar. So that would tell you that the other 23 are tahar. So therefore, the Torah lists them as exceptions, and it makes sense why we need to list all 23. But if we're trying to learn from anywhere other than a nesher, you would say, what do I need the other cases? If I'm learning from the 20, what do I need the Orev? If I'm learning from the Orev, what do I need the peres and the azniya? So therefore, the only one that explains why the Torah needed to list all 24 is the nesher. From the nesher is the quintessential case of an of tamei. We define an of tamei as a bird that is missing all 4 simanei tara. Separately, the Torah tells you there's 23 exceptions to the rule, but the rule itself comes from the case of the Nesher. And that's how we conclude. Okay, so now we've finished the Brisa of Reb Chia. So we'll just do Rashi quickly. Rashi says, Im kain de me aznia ba'ina lemelef. So if you're telling me we should learn from the aznia that even one siman tara is insufficient, lamali the cause of Nesher. What do I need to write Nesher altogether, which has none, and I would know it automatically. Elami the kasve, but rather from the fact that it did write Nesher, shma mina lo telef me aznia. So we learn from there that you don't learn out the what is a kosher or non-kosher bird from aznia, but rather you learn it from Nesher. V'shar ofos haboim b'siman echad, and other birds that come with one siman of tahara, she'enon min peres v'aznia, that aren't a peres or aznia, tahar. Those are tahar. To mean neshef telef, because we learn from Nesher the less like klalo sochol hal islay chad achol, that it's only if it has no simane tara that it is not eaten, but if it has even one siman tara, you would eat it. The kosher kain trey utlasa, and for sure, if it has two simane tara, that you can eat it unless it's an orev, and tlasa if it's 3, unless it's one of the 20. Chutz me aznia uperes lo machsharina b'chad. So in other words, except for an aznia and peres are the only ones that aren't permitted with one. V'orev nami afagav de islay trey lo sochel, and an orev is also an exception to the rule that if it doesn't have, even if it has 2 simane tara, you don't eat it. V'shar ofet samafurashin, and the other 20 that are listed, afagav de islu tlasa, even though they have 3 simane tara, lo, not the lahachi parat behukra mishum da asumi nasher le'atera, because this is why the Torah needed to list them as exceptions to the rule, because otherwise you would learn from Nesher that they are tahar. Okay, so that's where we leave off. Elatime the cause of Rahman and Nesher mishum hachi kimluhu the siman echad tahar. So because the Torah wrote Nesher, and by writing Nesher is the only reason that explains why the Torah needed to write the other 23, we learn from there that if it has even one siman of tahara, it's tahar, unless it's one of the 23. But if not for that, because if I was learning from Paris and Azni, I would say that even one siman is insufficient. So therefore, I don't learn that out, because I would not explain why we need Nesher. Okay, so continues the Gemara. We are 8 lines down. So now the Gemara is going to ask a different question. So we've finished saying that Torah doesn't tell us that, because then what do you need the other 23? The 20 don't tell it to you because what do you need Orev? Orev doesn't tell it to you because what do you need Paris and Aznia? And therefore I need a Nesher. The Gemara is now going to ask, wait a second. Even if the Torah tells you, it says you still should not need Nesher. Why? So the Gemara is going to say as follows. All time at the cause of Rahman and Nesher, you're telling me that the reason I know what is that simanate that even one siman tara accepts is because the Torah needed to write Nesher in order to tell that to me, so that I know that the Nesher is the quintessential case, the prototypical case with missing all 4 simanate tara. Halav hachi, but if not for that, have amina leilef mi Paris Aznia. So we just said that if the Torah wouldn't have written Nesher, we would try to learn from Paris and Aznia that one siman tara is insufficient, and it's still tameh, because you see the Paris and Azni are tameh even though they have one siman. But the Gemara is saying, the Gemara is going to ask a question. Even if it did not say Nesher, I would not be able to learn out, as you were suggesting from Paris and Aznia, that one siman tara is insufficient, and it would still be tameh. Why wouldn't I learn that out? Because basically the Gemara is going to say, I can't learn from Paris and Aznia. Because Havile Paris Aznia, Shnei Ksuvim Abayin Ke'achad, that the Paris and Aznia are an example of 2 psukim that are coming to teach one law. Shnei Ksuvim Abayin Ke'achad Ein Malamdim. And we know that if you have 2 psukim that are coming to teach one law, we don't learn it. We don't learn it out. So we've encountered this concept many times, but let's just review it. The idea is the following: that the Torah has a concept of memetzino. That if you see a halacha that applies in one instance, it should apply to all instances that are similar to it, right? So if it lists 1, you learn from that to everything else. If it lists 2, the question is, why did I need to list 2? From 1, I would have known it. So rather, by listing 2, the Torah is telling you, don't learn from either one. It's only these 2. Why did I list 2? Because it's only these 2 and no others, right? So therefore, if the Torah lists two instances of something that it could have listed just one, it's not coming to teach you all other instances, it's coming to teach you only these two. So we were suggesting that we would learn from Paris and Uzniah. If not for the fact that Nesher was written, we would learn from Paris and Uzniah that one Siman Tara is insufficient, and that's why we needed Nesher. But the Gemara is asking that even if it listed Paris and Uzniah, I would see those as unique exceptions. I would not learn from there that even one Siman Tara is insufficient, because it's insufficient only in the case of Paris and Uzniah. So we're left with no limud to tell you that one Siman Tara is insufficient, and therefore we'd figure out on our own that as long as it has one Siman Tara, it's insufficient, and the Paris and Uzniah are exceptions to this rule. And in fact, from the very fact that it says the Paris and Uzniah are uniquely this way, I would learn out that other animals that have a single Siman of Tara should be sufficient. Okay? So the question makes sense. The Gemara is asking, even if we never said Nesher, we would not learn out from Paris and Uzniah to everything else, because Paris and Uzniah are Shnei Ksuvim Abayim Ke'achad. So therefore, I would know automatically not to learn from a single Siman Tara that it's insufficient, but rather you should learn that a single Siman Tara is sufficient, and therefore I don't need to learn Nesher. That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara is going to give an answer which we're going to explain uniquely according to Rashi. The Gemara says, Gemiri, we have a tradition, which is generally considered halacha Moshe ben Sinai, but again, lots of views on that. The Ika Bahai, Leka Bahai, the Ika Bahai, Leka Bahai. I'm sorry, the part that's uniquely Rashi we're going to explain in a minute. This one is saying as follows. When do we say Shnei Ksuvim Abayim Ke'achad Ein Melamdin, that if you repeat the law twice, it's telling you it's only true by these two? That's if you're saying the same law, right? So if you're saying the same law twice, why do you say it twice? You could have said it once. But if you need both of them to teach you some unique halacha, then obviously the fact that it's listing it twice is not coming to tell you that it only applies in these cases. It needed to list two because they're telling you slightly different halachas. So mechti, let's see. I'm sorry, that's Gemara's next thing. So what the Gemara's answer is, it requires a little bit of explanation, is as follows. That the idea is that the Paris and the Uzniah each have one Siman Tara and don't have the other three. But we have a tradition that they don't have the same Siman Tahara, right? So if I listed the Uzniah and the Paris without listing the Nesher, I would in fact learn from the Uzniah and Paris to all other instances that one Siman Tara is insufficient to make a bird tahar. What about the fact that you're teaching me the same law twice? I'm not teaching you the same law twice, because since the Paris and the Uzniah each have a unique Siman of Tahara, so if I said one, let's just make up that one of the Paris and Uzniah had a crop and the other had the extra finger, right? So if I only told, we don't know which is which, but if I only told you that the animal that has an extra finger is tameh, I would say I don't learn out from there to all other things, because maybe the one that has a crop, that's a better siman of tahara, right? So in other words, I would know only the one that an extra finger is insufficient, but I wouldn't know that a crop is insufficient. And if I would only teach you the crop is insufficient, I wouldn't know that the extra finger is also insufficient. So therefore, the Torah had a reason to tell us both. It wasn't trying to teach us the same halacha twice. It needed to tell it to us individually. Once the Torah needed to tell it to us individually, so then you could learn out a memetzinu from there to all other things. Because why weren't we going to learn out? We weren't going to learn out because the Torah repeated itself. It must be to show you that these are specific. But if the Torah was repeating itself to teach you separate halachas, so then you now have learned between the two of them, you've learned that a single siman tara is insufficient to make it tahar, and therefore any other bird that has only a single siman tahara would be insufficient. So that's why I needed to write nesher. So that's the Gemara's answer. Now the Gemara is going to ask the same question but a little differently. So the Gemara says, Mechti, let's see. Esrim v'arba ofos tameim havu. There's 24 tamei birds. It's impossible, although we're going to see in a minute it's possible. But the question of the Gemara is, it seems impossible that if you have the Paris and the Uzniah, each of whom has one siman of Tahara, right? Some other animal in the 23 other listed animals is going to have that same siman tara, right? So let's say it's the extra finger. If let's say the Paris has an extra finger, while it's true that the Osnia doesn't have it, one of the other 20, and the Nesher doesn't have it, so one of the other 21 is going to have it, right? And the same is true of the Osnia, that the Osnia is going to have its siman tara, and it's bound to be matched in one of the other 21. It's obviously not in the Paris, and it's not in the Nesher, but it's in some other one. So therefore, what do you end up with? You end up with at least two instances. In other words, let's say the Paris and Osnia, one has the finger and one has the crop. You're going to find other instances of a finger and other instances of a crop, and you're going to be left with shnei ksuma baim ke'achad ein melamdin, because you're going to see from more than one source that the finger is insufficient and that the crop is insufficient. So rather from and therefore we would not learn out to other things, because we're left back with a circumstance where something has been repeated more than once. If it's been repeated more than once, you don't learn out from it to other things. The Gemara's whole answer was premised on the fact that if I didn't write Nesher, you would learn it out from the Paris and the Osnia. We're saying you can't learn it out from the Paris and the Osnia because those, together with other instances, are cases of Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad, and Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad Ein Melamdim. So the Gemara says, V'havilu Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad. So therefore, your need for Nesher was because I couldn't learn. Otherwise, I would learn from Paris and Osnia. And the Gemara is now saying, no, you can't learn from Paris and Osnia because those are Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad, and you don't learn. So the Gemara says, Gemiri, and this is the one that Rashi is this question that we just explained is unique to Rashi, and also the answer, Gemiri Eser Varba Ofos Tmeim Havu. So he says that as follows, that we know that there are 24 Ofos Tomei, Varba Simanim, and there are 4 Simanei Tara. So he says, I'm sorry, 1 second. So Gemiri, Eser Varba Ofos Tmeim Havu. That there are 24 Ofos Tmeim, Varba Simanim, and there are 4 Simanim of Tara. Tlasi Hadre Bekulo Esrim Mehem. I'm sorry. Tlasa Hadre Bekulo. So that there's 3 of them in Bekulo Esrim Mehem. In 20 of the 24, there's 3. Shlosha. I'm sorry. Mehem Shlosha. Shlosha Utrei Ba'orev Chad Be'Peres v'Chad Ba'Oznia. So he's saying as follows: We know a Gemiri. It's a tradition to us that there's 24 Ofos Tmeim. There's 4 Simanim. That 3 of the Simanim exist in all 20, right? And then he's saying, I'm going to say outside in a second, then we can see it inside. The idea is the following: is that the 20 birds have all 3. The Orev has now all 20 of those have the same 3. In other words, there's one that, and this is where I said before, the Gemara's question was premised on the fact that it's impossible that you can't find, to use the example we said before, one other amongst the 20 that has an extra finger and one that has a crop. The Gemara is saying it is possible. According to Rashi, we don't know which it is, but the 20 all have the same 3 simanim, right? And the Orev has 2 of those 3 simanim, right? And so you're left with the Osnia and the Peres, one of which has one of those 3 simanim, and one of which, the Peres and the Osnia, one of them has a siman that the other 22 don't have, right? So therefore, our question, the Gemara's question, was premised on that it must be that Peres and Osnia have 2 simanim, each of which is found elsewhere, and therefore Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad Ein Melamdim. But what the Gemara is now saying is it's not true. Either the Peres or the Osnia has a siman of Tahara that none of the others have. None of the other 23 have it. So therefore, either the Peres or the Osnia is teaching us a halacha that we would be able to extrapolate to other things by Mematzino. So it's not Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad and Shnei Ksuma Bayim Kachad Ein Melamdim. Right? So that is the basic answer. The way Rashi's understanding it is that there is, in fact, either the Peres or the Osnia has a unique siman of Tahara, and therefore I need to say nesher, because if not for saying nesher, I would learn out from that unique instance that at least a bird with that siman of tahara is insufficient, because either the paris of the azniya is tameh despite having that. Okay, so the way we read that is as follows: that we have a gemiri that there's 24 ofas tmeim and there's 4 simanim. Talasa, three of them hadri bekulo eser mehem shlosha shlosha. So it's from those same three that you have repeated in the 20. V'trei ba'orev, there's 2 in the orev, chad beperes v'chad ba'azniya. But the isa baha, lesa baha, we know that the paris and azniya, what we said before, that what's in this one is not in that one. So therefore, we're left with either the paris of the azniya that has a unique siman tara. So ma'u the tema, I might have thought leilif minei, that you should learn from that single instance, which is not shnei ksum abayim ke'echad, that either the paris of the azniya has that unique siman of tahara, I should learn from there. Therefore, kasav rachmana nesher, the Torah wrote nesher the less like klal hudol seichol, that it's dafka the nesher that has no siman tahara that can't be eaten. Ha'ika the islay chad achol. But if there would be one that if there would be even one siman of tara, so it would be eaten. Okay, so a little complicated, but let me just try and summarize this again. So we went through and decided why we couldn't learn from Tor, we couldn't learn from the 20, we couldn't learn from the Orev, we couldn't learn from the Paris and the Azniya. So then the Gemara had a question, which is basically saying, you said that we cannot learn from the Paris and the Azniya, but that assumes that, you said the reason we can't learn from the Paris and the Azniya is because otherwise, why is Nesher written? The Gemara was asking, even if I didn't write Nesher, that the Paris and the Azniya, I would not be able to learn out from there to other things, and I don't need Nesher. Why? Because of Shnei Ksuma Bain Ka'echad. So the Gemara says, no, because the Paris and the Azniya are both needed, because one is not, the siman tara on one is not like the siman tara on the other, and I might have thought that one is stronger than the other, to which the Gemara then asked, forget the Paris and Azniya themselves, but the Paris and Azniya, each of them has a siman tara that must have a twin in the other 23, and the Gemara says, no, one of them, either the Paris or the Azniya, has a siman that's not found in the other 23, and I might have thought I should learn from there, so therefore the Torah needed to tell me the case of Nesher. Okay, so now there's one thing left that we have to clean up in the Gemara, which is basically the way we're going to understand this now is that we said before, the way we were understanding is that initially we understood that you have both the Nesher and the Tor, and it's the four that are separate, that are between them, that is the problem. But now we've gone through the Gemara and we've learned out that a Nesher, that all of the halachas are learned from Nesher. Nesher tells you that the Nesher is missing all 4 simanei Tara. So if you have something that has even one siman of Tara, that's going to be sufficient. So now going back to our original brisa, which was that Reisha in the Seifa, so we say in the beginning, that just like a nesher, all 4, it has its tameh. So to anything that's missing all 4 is tameh. Torin. So now the brisa continues, and this is what our Gemara is going to pick up on now. So if everything is really learned from nesher, then Torin. But then why do I need the next part of the brisa, which says Torin sheishlan espa yisera v'zefek v'korkavan niklaf vein darsin v'ochlin tahorin. So it's telling you that a tar is tahar. So Rashi asked that those seem to be a stira, and Rashi said no, really the beginning is the ikr, and the business about tar is not needed, because if you learn from tar, you would learn out the wrong thing. Because if you learn from tar, you would say in order to be kosher, you need to have all 4 simanei tara. So rather, we learn from Nesher, and it's saying even if you have one siman tara, that's sufficient. So what the Gemara wants to know now is why do you write this whole thing about Torim? And in fact, Torim the Kasav Rahman Alamali. So why did I need the Torah at all to say that Tar is an Of Tahar? Rashi says, Since we don't learn out from the tar, we only learn out from the nesher. Now, if you're telling me, okay, we don't learn anything out from the tar, but we need the tar to tell us that the tar itself is kosher. But if it's just coming to tell me that the tar itself is kosher, I don't need a pasuk for that. Why? Because we learned from nesher that if you have even one of the simanei tara, it's tar, and the tar obviously has all four. So the Gemara's question now is, once we're learning everything out from nesher, so then what do I need tar to be written in the Torah at all? So the Gemara is stuck at the bottom line. Why do I need to write tar? It's coming to tell me that I need it for a carbon. So let's take a look at Rashi, because Rashi brings two gersos, so, although he doesn't like one. So Rashi says the carbon, shehein levadan kshein the carbon. The reason the Torah mentioned tar and bnei Yonah, the Torah never actually says that these are kosher. What does the Torah say? The Torah says that these are kosher for a carbon. So it says it needed to tell us that these uniquely, the tar and the ben Yonah, are kosher l'carbon, v'lo of acher, not a different of. So the fact that the Torah wrote a tar was not to tell you that it's kosher for achila, but to tell you that it is kosher for carbon. V'hayda katani leitana le'el, the kamar af kol lo etzricha l'melech minayu midi. So he says, and this that the Tana said before, so too any animal that has all four, lo misrach lo melech minayu midi simanei tara. You don't actually need that to learn any of the simanei tara. Because we see from Nesher that even a single siman tara is sufficient. So surely if you have four simanei tara, it's sufficient. So simana ba'alma urilon she'elu simanei tara oson shanesher v'atorin chalukim behen. So Rashi's saying as follows. So why does the Tana reference? In other words, we don't need tar to tell us it can be eaten. So you only need it. In other words, why did the Torah write it in the first place? The Torah wrote it for carbon. Why does our Tana reference it? The Tana reference it because it's just a useful reminder of what the simanei tara are. The simanei tara are those things that are not present in Nesher but are present in a tar. Now Rashi says, "V'ist there's another girsa elatorin dekatani tana lamai helchasa." So he says that it's coming to tell you what halacha. And therefore the answer would be, it's coming to tell you la halacha that something that's like a tar that has four simanei tara can be used for a carbon. Rashi says, that's not possible. The Hayim Kain, my teruta the Ravikva, the Karmel carbon dummy, the carbon, then the answer is not a good answer as it says carbon. The mi ikal meimar af kol marbi tarnagol the carbon, however yeshben dalot simanim. So the Gemara says, so Rashi saying as follows: it doesn't make sense that it's coming to tell you the halacha that a tar is written to tell you what's kosher for a carbon, because if so, you would say that a tarnagol can be brought as a carbon. Why? Because the tarnagol has all four simanei tara. So so first of all, the Torah is repeated many times, tar and ben Yonah, and we know that anything the Torah repeats in Kachim is specific, and moreover, v'tanya b'Torah's konim, we learn in Torah's konim, yachol kol of yeh kasher l'carbon, that I might think any oaf is kasher for carbon. Talmud Lomer v'hikra ben atorim, b'nei Yonah, ein lecha oaf kasher el torim b'nei Yonah. So he says there's nothing other than a tar or ben Yonah that would be kasher. So Rashi doesn't like this girsa. Others explain that it has to do with the significance of you could actually learn out that a tarnagol is mutter for carbon. Where would this apply? This would apply in a case of a bama. And this gets into interesting machlokas rishonim about whether Noach, when Noach brought all of the tahar behemoths as a carbon, did he bring only the Torim and the Bnei Yonah, or did he bring even other things? So that's an interesting question. Alternatively, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, so with that, we'll wrap up. Let's continue Mezir Shem tomorrow. Good morning.